Good evening. Our top story tonight, this is the final episode of Player Profiler Today. Until after I meet everyone at the draft. Oh my goodness, I am so excited. Pre-recording this, spending some time with the family, heading out to Kansas City early in the morning, heading to Detroit tonight. Whew! I cannot wait. That means the next episode of Player Profiler Today will be live in Kansas City. We might have some guests with the whole house there. Stay tuned for Player Profiler Today. I didn't scare anyone too much with the intro, just thought I'd have a little bit of fun. And we are going to have some fun with the final mock draft. Unless something changes, unless there is a pre draft trade, then maybe I can crank out a final mock draft. But for now, this will be the final. This will be this will be the draft order. And of course, we are not buying into the Will Levis at one hype. I wish it was true. I really, really do. But it's not. Bryce Young is going to the Carolina Panthers. It's happening. I almost said he's going to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Looking at this logo here, had a little bit of a brain fart, but he's going to the Panthers. It should be CJ Stroud. I'd be fine if it was Will Levis. I'd be fine if it was Anthony Richardson. But Frank Reich finally gets his quarterback. But what about the Houston Texans? I don't think they're going to be getting their quarterback. I think that with the Texans, where there is smoke, there is fire. And I am buying the smoke that he's way down there now, but Tyree Wilson is the pick for the Houston Texans. We have heard rumors. Now, we've also seen Will Levis climb and climb and climb, but as Anand Nanduri has pointed out multiple times, Vegas isn't in the prediction business. Vegas is in the risk management business. They are hedging their bets to make sure they don't lose too much money with Will Levis. But I do believe that the Houston Texans, much like last year with Derek Stingley ahead of Sauce Gardner, where there is smoke, there is fire. The Texans are a leaky organization. And until they get rid of Nick Caserio, I'm believing that the rumors are true. Tyree Wilson to the Houston Texans at 3. This is a trade I have made every single time. Raiders trade up to 3 with the Arizona Cardinals. We will force this trade, and the Raiders will draft Anthony Richardson. This is one that I have been in all along, and I'm not pivoting now. The Raiders have Jimmy Garoppolo, who is not a long-term answer at quarterback, and maybe they pivot to CJ Stroud. Cody Carpentier, in I believe his mock 1.0 had the Raiders trading up to 1 for Stroud. Days later, the Panthers traded up to 1, clearly for Bryce Young. So maybe the Raiders surprise me, but I think Josh McDaniels goes with the most athletic quarterback in the history of the NFL, Richardson, to the Raiders in a trade up with the Arizona Cardinals. If the Cardinals stay at that pick, I believe they will take the player that I mocked to them in just a little bit. Indianapolis Colts get their guy. Will Levis is a Colt. I know there's steam that he could go to the Texans at 2, that he could go at 3 in a trade up. I think the Colts get their guy, though. And maybe the Colts trade up to 3. Less likely the Colts trade up to 2, but anything is possible. Either way, Will Levis, welcome to Indianapolis. You don't even have to change your colors. We already know he looks good in the blue and the white. Go Will Levis. Go Indianapolis Colts, which makes life extremely interesting for the Seattle Seahawks. CJ Stroud is on the board, as are the 2 best players in the 2023 NFL Draft. Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, 2 best players in the draft, both available, but Stroud, franchise quarterback of the future. CJ Stroud can be everything that Pete Carroll wanted him to be, thrive in the play action game, make plays on third down. CJ Stroud will be his new Russell Wilson, his new Geno Smith. CJ Stroud is a perfect fit for what the Seahawks want to do, which is why I believe if he is sitting there at 5, they will select the Ohio State quarterback, which leaves the Lions with Will Anderson. And is this a little bit of bias? Potentially. Will I be surprised if Will Anderson goes in the top 5 picks? No. But I still think it's 4 for 5 quarterbacks. And the smoke around Tyree Wilson is true. I don't believe it should be true. I believe Will Anderson is the best edge rusher. I believe Jalen Carter is the best player, but I'm buying into the smoke. Will Anderson falls, and when the Lions have the choice between Anderson and Devon Witherspoon, who is the favorite, they go with the edge rusher. And interesting with Devon Witherspoon, I've heard that he could go as high as 3 to the Arizona Cardinals, but I'm also hearing that the cornerback class in general could take a slide because it is so deep. Emmanuel Forbes, Cam Smith could sneak, Deontay Banks could all sneak into the first round. Or all of these guys could slide just a little bit. And I think that slide does happen. The Arizona Cardinals take the player that Kyler Murray wants. And this is the other player that I heard could go as high as 3 to the Arizona Cardinals, Paris Johnson. Paris Johnson is the favorite on per Vegas to be the first offensive lineman drafted. We know that Kyler Murray is a fan of Paris Johnson, and sometimes you gotta pay the happiness tax. Listen to Kyler Murray in this situation and get yourself an all-pro caliber tackle. If that's all it takes to make your QB happy is to select an all-pro offensive lineman, then you do it. You just do it. Paris Johnson, he can play guard in year 1, kick outside whenever the DJ Humphries moves on. Cardinals select Paris Johnson. First pick by the Cardinals is a home run. And that's another thing that is sometimes underrated. When it's your first draft as a general manager, there's pressure to not screw it up. So, Cardinals under pressure. Paris Johnson is a safe and dominant pick. Atlanta Falcons, come on down, Bijan Robinson. This is one that I have been hyping for a while. This is one that Cody got me on initially. Actually, I think Jason got me onto this one beforehand. I think Jason has been screaming about, oh, Arthur Smith needs his Derrick Henry. He needs his all-star running back. Now, most of the times when we speak in coach-centric analysis, it is wrong. But when it comes to Arthur Smith and the Falcons, I think he's right here. I think Bijan Robinson goes off the board here to the Atlanta Falcons. And that puts, Anyways, I pivoted. I have already pivoted from my initial mock draft. I thought, when I wrote this down ahead of time, I thought I was going to have Jalen Carter to the Arizona Cardinals. But I don't, which throws everything into a blender here. And since Jalen Carter is on the board, there is no chance in hell he is getting past the Chicago Bears. If Jalen Carter is gone before then, if the Cardinals do take Jalen Carter, then I believe it will be Darnell Wright. But because Jalen Carter is on the board, Bears can't pass him up. Eagles, I believe Peter Skoronski is the guy. He is a day 1 starter at right guard. Currently, future center Cam Jurgens is scheduled to play right guard. It's going to be a guard competition for the Eagles. But if you draft Skoronski, Jurgens gets to play backup as center for another year, learn behind Jason Kelsey for another year. Skoronski starts day 1 at guard, mauls people, and then eventually he takes over, steps in at right tackle for Lane Johnson when he eventually retires. And then you've still got 2 kick-ass bookend tackles in Jordan Mailata and now Peter Skoronski. That will bring the Tennessee Titans on the clock. I had the Titans taking Paris Johnson previously, but obviously that is no longer an option because the Cardinals drafted him. Now, what do the Titans do? They have a lot of needs. They could go quarterback. They could trade back. They should trade back. But in this situation, I don't have them trading back. And so I will have them taking the local kid, Darnell Wright. Now everything's right in the world. The players that I had swapped around, Paris Johnson, Darnell Wright, and Jalen Carter, they all find their homes still in the top 11. Titans get a left tackle of the future. They can kick Andre Dillard inside the guard or start Darnell Wright at guard. Titans just need bodies on the offensive line. This is a bad, bad team. But you know what isn't bad? You know what is great? It's Player Profiler and all the sponsors that we have, including Rival Fantasy.
Hey, it's the Podfather. Now, in the offseason, I get into baseball, I get into basketball, and my preferred platform to play fantasy sports is Rival Fantasy, because Rival Fantasy has challenges where you can just take a guy and say, hey, this guy's going to score more fantasy points than this guy. They put two shortstops together, pick one. Point guards, pick one. Spoiler alert, you should pick Damian Lillard. Or they have the fantasy book where you could pick over, under, and up to 5 guys. And then the more you pick, your potential payout quickly escalates. And finally, I submit a bingo card because you can just go over, under across the board, get your fantasy bingo card set, submit it. I'm not the biggest basketball or baseball expert, but I have a hell of a lot of fun playing fantasy sports on rivalfantasy.com. And the best part is with promo code PLAYER, they refund up to $50 of any losses. So the promo code there is PLAYER on rivalfantasy.com. Go have some fun.
Go have some fun courtesy of Player Profiler Today and the Podfather. That puts the Houston Texans on the clock. And this is one that, honestly, I had locked in. I had a couple picks just already pre-scheduled here in this mock draft, and Jackson Smith-Njigba to the Houston Texans is one of them. He's the favorite right now, the Texans are the favorite to draft JSN, and I'm going chalk here. I think that the Texans are an open book. I think they are chalk. They take Tyree Wilson. They take Jackson Smith-Njigba. Maybe they take Hendon Hooker a little bit later. Spoiler alert, they do not in my mock draft, but maybe they trade back in. Packers on the clock, and this is another one that I had penciled in. The Packers move up 2 slots, make sure they get their guy, Dalton Kincaid. Now, I know Player Profiler has Michael Mayer ahead of him. I know a lot of NFL evaluators will have Michael Mayer ahead of Dalton Kincaid because Mayer can do it all. He can be on the field all 3 downs. He can be in there in the run game, whereas Dalton Kincaid, he's more of a slot receiver. But Daniel Jeremiah has Dalton Kincaid in the top 10 for his prospects, much like Bijan Robinson, just because we do not believe that a tight end or a running back is worth selecting that high. NFL disagrees. Green Bay Packers get Dalton Kincaid, finally get another weapon, finally go offense. Didn't do it while Aaron Rodgers was there, but finally go offense in the first round. Patriots on the clock. This is a pick that I have made plenty. This is a pick I will continue to make. Best offensive lineman on the board. That is who the Patriots should take, as long as one of the top 4 offensive tackles are there. If not, that might be a little bit early for DeJuan Jones or Anton Harrison. So at that point, they might have to pivot. Maybe that's the point they take Zay Flowers. But either way, they get Broderick Jones once again. New York Jets on the clock now, and the Jets trade back, and you know what Robert Saleh wants to do. You know what Joe Douglas wants to do. This is a duo that loves the defensive line, and so they get the best defensive lineman available, Nolan Smith, who Cody Carpentier believes is a top 4 player in this draft, if memory serves me correct. Nolan Smith falls to the New York Jets. He is worthy of going top 10. Miles Murphy also sliding in my draft, which is disappointing, but it is what it is. There is a lot of talent in this draft. I know we complain about the wide receiver talent, but the defensive linemen, both interior and edge rushers, they are freaks. The tight end class, while we don't love taking a tight end early, they're freaks. Running back class is great. Quarterback class, we're going to get 5 starters. This 2023 NFL draft, we're just lucky. We are lucky to have it. Commanders take the top cornerback on the board. They take Devon Witherspoon. I cannot believe he has fallen this far, but Commanders make things right. Devon Witherspoon could go as high as 3. I don't see him falling past the Washington Commanders. That puts the Steelers on the clock, and it is time once again for the happiness tax to take root. I do believe that the Steelers are in communication with Kenny Pickett, asking what he believes will help him take the next step. And I believe Kenny Pickett will say that is Jordan Addison, much like Joe Burrow did for Jamar Chase. Jordan Addison's on the board. I think it's a smash for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then they can trade Deontay Johnson, which is something they considered doing last year, something that teams are calling about now that they've signed Allen Robinson. So I think the Steelers go Jordan Addison. And I think the Lions, while they don't get Devon Witherspoon, they are close. And they still get a top cornerback at 18. Christian Gonzalez comes off the board. Really, any of these top 3 corners in Christian Gonzalez, Devon Witherspoon, and Joey Porter, or maybe you have Deontay Banks ahead of them. Maybe you have Emmanuel Forbes ahead of them. Really, it's chooser's choice at the cornerback position. It depends on what you are looking for. Gonzalez, long, athletic, just he's a star. He is a future star. Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the clock, and this ends the slide of Lucas Van Ness, a player that could very well sneak inside the top 10, player that should go inside the top 20. Lucas Van Ness to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They need help on the defensive line, and Lucas Van Ness can fill multiple roles because they need help at edge rusher. Right now, Shaq Barrett coming off the Achilles tear. So it's Joe Tryon, who has shown out at times, and Anthony Nelson, who's more of a 3rd, 4th edge rusher. You get Lucas Van Ness, and you can also rush from the interior in those NASCAR packages. Great pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Seahawks on the clock once again. And usually I have them going Christian Gonzalez. I have had them make that move multiple times. Instead, though, who'd they take the first time in my CJ Stroud? Okay, since they took CJ Stroud, Myles Murphy comes off the board here. They drafted Boye Mafe last year. They drafted Tyreek Smith last year, but Uchenna Nwosu on one final year on his contract, signed a 2-year deal last year. And Myles Murphy comes in, steps onto the field, and from day one, he is a starter. He takes the place of Boye Mafe, who I still like, but Myles Murphy to the Seahawks at 20. Absolute smash. Dolphins skip their pick because they were, depends on what, I still love this story because technically the Dolphins lost this draft pick for flirting with Tom Brady and flirting with Sean Payton, but we all know they lost this pick because owner Stephen Ross told Brian Flores to throw games, but the NFL couldn't admit that. They had to say, no, he was joking. Congress, please don't investigate us. That would be really bad. Don't do it. It was a joke. But still, we're going to suspend you, fine you, all these things. But it's only for Tom Brady and Sean Payton. It's not for the throwing games. No, it's not. Funny. Anyways, Chargers on the clock here. And this might be wish casting, but Zay Flowers to the Chargers. Whew! That would make them the best offense in the NFL. And I saw people on Instagram. I don't know. I don't want to say that people on Instagram have a lower IQ than the people that watch this show on YouTube. I'm not saying that. That would be rude. But there are people on Instagram saying, well, I don't care who they had. Any receiver, it doesn't make them the best offense. You sure about that? Because they had the potential to be the best offense in the NFL this past year if Joe Lombardi wasn't trying to play Drew Brees ball and if they had a field stretcher. Anytime Justin Herbert is your quarterback, you have the chance to be the best offense in the NFL. You add the second best receiver in this draft. You add Zay Flowers. You add legit 4-3 wheels. Whew. Justin Herbert is going to unleash that deep ball with Zay Flowers. I cannot wait. And for anyone on Instagram or in the chat that needs to learn more about these players, that needs to brush up so they don't say such preposterous things as, well, one receiver doesn't change the Chargers. This receiver does. So if you need that help, go and get the rookie guide. It is a necessity for draft night.
Oh, I'm wearing Cody's hat in honor of Cody Carpentier. He has finished the rookie guide. It is a masterpiece, the best rookie guide you will read that combines both real NFL draft analysis and fantasy analysis. This guy goes deep. I mean, do you know who Tyon Evans is? This man wrote up and ranked 40 running backs, 40 wide receivers, 15 quarterbacks, and 23 tight ends. 23 tight ends? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. We've got fantasy rookie draft cheat sheets for super flex and single quarterback to go along with these write-ups that include analytics player comps and play style player comps. All the stats you need, the analysis you need to understand what kind of impact these guys are going to have in the NFL and for your fantasy team. So go to playerprofiler.com, go to any player page, go to the NFL draft section, and click the button to get the rookie guide. It's just $10. That's it. That's all. It's not the most expensive, but it is the best.
And that puts the Baltimore Ravens on the clock at 22. And I promise you that the Ravens are taking a defender here. The defense for the Ravens has disintegrated. They lost Calais Campbell. They really do not have juice off the edge. They're hoping that David Ajabo can take a step forward the second year coming off of his Achilles. They're hoping that Odafe Owe can have a breakout in his third year. Was a disappointment in year 2 compared to year 1. Because last year, Justin Houston, at 85 years old, led the team in sacks. He's gone. Ravens could draft an edge defender, but here I have them going with cornerback. Marcus Peters, he is a free agent, and it just so happens that they have access to the kid just down the street in Deontay Banks. I'm sure they have spoken with him plenty. Banks stays home, goes to the Baltimore Ravens, and that puts the Minnesota Vikings on the clock. And there are 2 picks that I think they could go here if they don't trade up, because there have been rumors that the Vikings could trade up. And I'll be honest, I thought about going bold here. I really did. I really thought about having the Minnesota Vikings trade all the way up to number 2, but I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And so I won't rule that out. Maybe they do trade up for Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, but they could also take Hendon Hooker here. Or they could pass on Hendon Hooker and take Quentin Johnston, get an outside wide receiver to complement Justin Jefferson. KJ Osborne stays in the slot. We've heard rumors that Dalvin Cook could be cut or traded ahead of or on draft night. But Bijan's off the board. I don't see them taking Jahmyr Gibbs. I see them waiting and taking Kendre Miller. So the Jaguars are on the clock, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, they've got quite a few needs. They need serious help at corner. Actually, that's mostly it. But they also need offensive line help. And that's the direction I think they're going with. They just lost starting right tackle Juwan Taylor. Walker Little could step in as the right tackle. He is expected to. Or they could opt to continue to invest in the offensive line, build around Trevor Lawrence, which is why I think they take Anton Harrison. He could start at right tackle from day one. He could play guard, could compete with Ben Barch at guard, compete with Tyler Shatley at guard. Either way, the Jaguars, I see them going offensive line, continuing to build around Trevor Lawrence, though I have given them a corner plenty in the past. Giants on the clock. With the Giants on the clock, I've given them a cornerback every time. Most of the time, I give them Cam Smith, but Emmanuel Forbes still on the board here. I think that is who they go with. He is a big-time risk taker. A lot of interceptions, smaller cornerback, and I see that being loved by Wink Martindale. He'd be all over that. They need a corner that can play man-to-man. And though Forbes is a little bit small to be playing press man, I think the ball skills will excite the Giants enough. Though Cam Smith, another incredible option. Cowboys, there are whispers that they're into Jahmyr Gibbs. I thought about taking him off the clock, but I am hoping that the Cowboys have learned. I'm hoping that Jerry is listening to Stephen Smith and they go offensive line, much like when Stephen Jones, much like when Stephen Jones ripped the card out of Jerry Jones' hand when he was about to go and draft Johnny Manziel. I see a similar scenario playing out. Osiris Torrance, Cowboys draft the new Zach Martin, who incidentally is the player that they drafted instead of Johnny Manziel. And so they get a day one left guard instead of having a competition there. Bills on the clock. Bills are an interesting team. They could go in a lot of different directions. They could go offensive line. They could go defensive line. They could go safety. They could go linebacker. The Bills, for the best team in the NFL last year, they have taken quite a few hits. But they keep on coming. They go and they draft Will McDonald, DeWan Jones, Joey Porter still on the board. I can't believe Joey Porter. I did not take him off. Probably should have given him to the Giants instead, but whoops. Anyways, the Bills are going to go with DeWan Jones, right tackle. Though they drafted two a couple years ago, Spencer Brown being one of them, he is projected to be the starter. He had a lot of issues. He got benched at one point for David Questenberry. They draft DeWan Jones, a mountain of a man. And if it doesn't work out at tackle, he can kick inside and play some guard. Either way, the Bills are the kind of team that will draft an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, or a cornerback in round one. So why pivot there? Bengals, I'm giving Jahmyr Gibbs. This is wish casting, of course. Cowboys could steal him ahead of time, but I think I think Jahmyr Gibbs to the Bengals, that would be one of the most exciting moves that could possibly happen. I have also heard that the Saints, if Hendon Hooker is there for the Saints, they will take him off the board. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to give them Hendon Hooker. They went all in on Derek Carr, so that would be quite a surprise to see them immediately draft the QB of the future. But it's the Saints, and nothing the Saints do makes sense. Eagles on the clock. They take Joey Porter Jr. They cannot allow his slide to continue. This is probably a mistake. I probably will regret having Joey Porter go this low. But anyways, he goes to the Eagles. He is absolutely a first-round lock. And finally, the Kansas City Chiefs, they plan for life after Travis Kelce. Though they don't get Dalton Kincaid, they get Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame with the 31st overall pick. And that's it. That's the draft. I hope that you remember. I hope that you have learned from it, because I'm telling you, this is what the draft is going to end up looking. Let's show you one final reminder of what this mock draft is. There we go. There we go. Share my screen once again. Zoom out so we can see everyone. All the players. Bryce Young, Tyree Wilson, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, and CJ Stroud inside the top 5. Will Anderson, Paris Johnson, Bijan Robinson, Jalen Carter, and Peter Skoronski round out the top 10. Darnell Wright to the Tennessee Titans. Jackson Smith and Jigba, first receiver off the board to the Texans. Dalton Kincaid, the second pass catcher off the board to the Green Bay Packers. 3 wide receivers in the first round. 2 tight ends in the first round. Take it in. And remember, because this is the final mock draft. Unless we get a trade tomorrow, this is how it's all going to play out.